Why is Goblin Piledriver never sad? Because he has protection from the blues.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further, as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back to another Multizone matchup. Today's game has Matthew playing Quintorius Field Researcher, keeping a Plains, Cave of the Frost Dragon, Valakut Awakening, Sun Titan, Shenanigans, Chroma's Memorial, and Underworld Breach. New to the channel is Anthony playing Esix, keeping a Blighted Woodland, Krosan Grip, Fractal Harness, Eureka Moment, 2 Islands, and Garruk Primal Hunter. Dom is back playing Yarok the Desecrated, keeping a Turn Timber Ranger, Venser Shaper Savant, Mystic Remora, Birds of Paradise, Universal Automaton, a Forest, and an Island. Jalbel is playing Sasaya Orochi Ascendant, keeping Endless Atlas, 4 Forests, Dryad Greenseeker, and an Oakham Adversary. Dom wins a die roll and starts us off. He draws, playing a Forest for turn, and casting Birds of Paradise. Jalbel draws and plays a Forest. Anthony just plays a Lumbering Falls, which comes in tapped, and passes. Matthew plays a Cave of the Frost Dragon, and passes to Dom. Dom drops an island and casts Wood Elves, going to grab a Bayou and passing. Jalbel plays a Forest, and then is able to cast an Oakham Adversary for a reduced cost, and passes. Anthony draws and plays a Blighted Woodland, and then casts Geometric Nexus, passing. Matthew draws and plays a Dowsing Dagger. He gives the 2 plant tokens to Anthony, and passes. Dom plays the Mystic Remora we saw, and passes to Jalbel. Jalbel draws and plays a Forest, and then casts the Dryad Greenseeker in his opener, and follows up with a Renegade map. Moving to combat, he swings the Oakham Adversary at Matthew for 2, drawing a card as it connects. Anthony draws and plays a Forest. He casts Hornet's Nest and passes. Matthew draws and then plays a Valakut Awakening as a Valakut Stoneforge, passing. Dom pays the upkeep cost for his Mystic Remora and draws. He plays a Hinterland Harbor, passing. Jalbel draws and plays a Forest, and then casts a Heartwood Storyteller. Moving to combat, he hits Matthew for 2 with the Adversary, drawing as it connects. Anthony just plays a Lonely Sandbar tapped, and passes. Matthew draws and casts a Wheel of Misfortune in his main phase. This has each of his opponents drawing a card from Jalbel's Heartwood Storyteller, and Dom gets to draw another card from the Remora trigger. They then all secretly pick a number, with Matthew picking 10, Dom and Anthony hitting 7, and Jalbel picking 1. This has Matthew taking 10, and then he, Dom, and Anthony draw 7 after discarding their hand. Matthew then plays whatever land side of Shatterskull Smashing is, and passes to Dom. Dom pays his 2 on his upkeep for the Remora trigger, and plays a Command Tower. He then taps 3 for Agadim Occultist, and reveals his Yarok deck to be a Sultai Allies. At the end of turn, Jalbel activates the Greenseeker, revealing a land, which goes to his hand. He then plays a Forest for turn, and taps enough for Yavimaya Elder. He then casts an Endless Atlas, and his opponents draw from the Storyteller trigger, and he then swings the Adversary at Dom, who blocks with his Wood Elves. Anthony plays an Island for turn, and then taps enough for a Master Biomancer. Matthew draws, and plays, and then sacrifices an Arid Mesa. He finds a mountain from his library, and casts a Flamewake Phoenix. He equips it with the Dowsing Dagger, and swings it at Jalbel for 4. The dagger then transforms, and he taps the land for 3, using 2 of it for Talisman of Conviction, which has his opponents drawing a card from Jalbel's Heartwood Storyteller, and Dom also gets to draw from the Remora. Matthew then uses Path to Exile on the Master Biomancer, and Anthony adds another counter to his Geometric Nexus as he goes to find a land. Dom finally lets the Remora go to his graveyard after not paying the upkeep cost, and plays out a Tropical Island. He then taps enough for Windfall, which has his opponents drawing a card from the Storyteller trigger, and they then discard their hand and draw a fresh 7 since that's the largest hand size when it's discarded. Dom then casts a Demonic Tutor and goes to find a card for hand, while Anthony adds more counters to his Nexus. Jalbel casts Sasaya Orochi Ascendant in his main phase and then reveals his hand. He has 7 lands and rotates his commander to Sasaya's Essence. He has just an absurd amount of mana now. He then plays a forest, bringing that mana made from each land to 6, and he taps 1 forest for Palakranos, and still has enough for a Scroll Rack, which lets his opponents draw from his own Storyteller trigger. Moving to combat, he swings the Adversary, Elder, and Storyteller at Matthew, who takes the hit. Jalbel gets to draw again from the Occam Adversary, and then passes to Anthony. Anthony plays a forest for turn, and taps enough to bring out his commander, Esix, who is sadly countered by Dom with a mana drain. This does trigger the Storyteller, letting Dom's opponents each draw a card, and Anthony adds more counters to his Nexus. He then passes, discarding down to 7. Matthew plays that a Battlefield Forge as his land for turn, and brings out his commander, Quintorius Field Historian. He then taps enough for an Alms, which seems like a decent enabler for Quintorius. Matthew then internalizes the Timeless Dragon from his graveyard, making a 4/4 token copy of it, and exiling the card. Quintorius sees this, and makes him a 3/2 Spirit token as well. Moving to combat, the Phoenix has to attack, and goes at Anthony. With nothing else, Matthew passes, discarding down to 7. Dom plays a Swamp for turn, and taps big for a Genesis Wave using that mana drain mana as well. Anthony's Excess gains even more counters from Dom's big X spell, and Dom starts to reveal his top cards. He gets to keep a Palancron, some lands, a Halimar Excavator, Herobrad's Druid, and a Mana Crypt. His opponents do get to draw from the Heartwood Storyteller trigger, and Dom's Palancron untaps some lands. He gets 2 triggers from the Excavator coming in, and also sees the Druid coming in, which has him milling Jalbel for 3 2 times. Dom then taps enough for Yarok, and drops an Umara Raptor. This triggers itself twice thanks to Yarok, and also the Halimar Excavator twice as well. This time he has Jalbel mill 4 cards 2 times. And once that's all done, Dom then casts Beast Within and targets Sasaya's Essence, which Jalbel responds to by drawing a card with his Endless Atlas. They then draw from the Storyteller trigger, and Jalbel then activates his Scroll Rack, swapping his hand for that many cards on top of his library. Jalbel then uses his forest to make 6 green mana, and has Palakranos Monstrous, and fights the Druid and the Bird. In response, Dom taps the Occultist to put to field Iroas from Matthew's graveyard. Matthew gains a Spirit token from his commander seeing a card leave his graveyard, and the Beast Within finally resolves, and blows up the enchantment, and Dom passes. Jalbel plays a forest, and then casts a Traverse Amulet, letting his opponents draw a card from the Storyteller trigger. He casts a Search from Tomorrow, which finds him a land and nets his opponents another card. Jalbel also casts another Ramp spell, doing the same, and his opponents draw again, while Anthony continues to add counters to his Nexus based on the CMC of the spells. Anthony draws, and plays an Exotic Orchard. He then plays an Idol of Oblivion, and his opponents all draw a card. Hadrix and Nev, twin casters, then join the fray, and Anthony then casts Incubation. He keeps a Hornet Queen, and bins the rest of his top 5. He then passes, discarding down to 7. Matthew plays a land, and casts a Soul Ring. He goes to combat, swinging the token Timeless Dragon at Jalbel, and the Phoenix at Anthony, and his 2 tokens at Dom. Dom blocks the 2 tokens with Palancron and Yarok, gaining 3 life from his commander's lifelink, and the rest of them take the hits. In his second main phase, Matthew then plays out Divine Reckoning, which wipes the board for all but 1 creature per side of the opponent's boards. This does let his opponents draw a card first from the Storyteller trigger, and with nothing else, he passes to Dom. Dom rolls and fails his Mana Crypt trigger, taking 3. He then plays a Misty Rainforest for turn, and then casts a Grief for the evoke cost, exiling a black card from hand. The elemental enters, and triggers twice. He hits Jalbert with the first one, having him discard Praetor's Council, and the second one on Matthew, which has him discarding Past in Flames. Dom then sacrifices Grief, and he follows up with the Tarju Warcaller, which as it enters pumps his board by +2/+2 twice until end of turn. Dom then drops a Majuka Brigand, who enters and puts a +1/+1 counter on itself twice, and pumps his board again by +2/+2 thanks to the Warcaller seeing another ally entering. A Jiraga Bard then hits the field, giving his team Vigilance twice until end of turn, pumping them all again by +2/+2 twice, and giving the Brigand another 2 +1/+1 counters. He finally cracks the Misty Rainforest, losing 1, and goes to find an island, and then goes to combat. He goes at Matthew with Yarok, who before damage is dealt, responds by activating Alms 8 times individually, exiling that many cards, and Quintorius makes him that many spirits. He prevents some damage from Yarok, and has to block Yarok with 2 spirits because of Iris making him have Menace. And when all that's said and done, Dom still gains 7 life, and passes turn. Jalbert draws and plays a forest. He recasts his commander, and then reveals his hand to show 7 lands, and rotates his commander into the Essence side. He then needs tap only 1 forest to cast both 3 visits and Nissa's Pilgrimage, to find 2 forests to the field, 1 untapped and 1 tapped, plus 2 forests to his hand. He then taps enough forests to cast just an enormous Genesis Wave where X is 35, and he gets a ton of cards and lands, but more importantly, he hits Kamal, Fist of Krosa. With his forest now tapping for a zillion mana, Jalbert is able to activate Kamal several times to pump his board, making even the smallest of his creatures lethal. He also has an Eternal Witness coming in, and this returns to hand the Praetor's Council. He casts it and returns his graveyard to his hand. Once that's done, he casts a massive Finale of Devastation, giving his board much needed haste, not to mention a pump and trample, to win in the game. Game review time. So once more, big green mana wins the day, but it wasn't with one of the traditional green commanders, so I thought that was pretty cool. I was also really happy to see some other new decks like Esix, which does seem to be the stock list for the most part from Anthony, although he did include some fun cards. I wish we saw a little bit more, but I did film a couple games with this deck, so hopefully those other ones will showcase the deck a bit better. The same goes for Quintorius. I feel like we really only scratched the surface of what the deck can do once we saw Alms coming out and his commander was out. He unfortunately also suffered from a lot of tap lands, so basically his deck was a bit slower than everyone else. I think for Dom's Yarok deck, this is probably the first time I haven't completely rolled my eyes as soon as I saw the commander. Sultai Allies is an interesting take, since I typically see General Tazri as the only ally commander. I'm always a big fan of people building decks with built-in restrictions, so only being able to play 3 of the 5 color of allies makes it a little bit harder to win. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.